People, deluded, good evening. I hope you're all doing well and safe and them things there. Now, like I just said, it's the evening time, it's Friday, we can't go out and do things we normally do in society, but I was relaxing. I normally take Saturday, interesting fact, Saturday is the only day I don't make videos, purely because I believe in looking after yourself and I needed to set some rules, long story short. But, I thought I was finished the vids for the week, it's all done. Got a new book here, ready to dive into it, and, Dale Carnegie is a very good, author and things like that. Check him out. But I'm sure you've all seen Emery's latest comments in relation to Arsenal, with the headline being, obviously, Arsenal couldn't protect me, truth is I felt alone. Now, a lot of what Unai Emery has said is the same old things. We know he wanted Zaha, for example. We know his comments around Aaron Ramsey, around Mesut Ozil, and generally how he feels about his time at Arsenal. I do think he is very man enough and very honest and gives an accurate view on his time. Of course, he's a manager and he's a prideful man, so I do think a bit of it is, what's the right word? Modifying how it kind of went, sort of thing. It depends how you look at it, because he kind of goes on the topic of, we got Europa League final, which is good on one hand, devil's advocate, the competition, Arsenal should be getting there, and on the other hand, we done well in terms of challenging for the top four domestically, and we threw it away in the last furlong, in the last couple of games or so. Obviously the players have to take responsibility, but so does Emery. Throughout it, Emery's tactics were bewildering, and I also think, just generally, for when he focuses on that last lap, it kind of gives the impression that we were consistent all season, when the truth is we were very inconsistent, and we had some inconsistent results before that last leg of the season. People, I did think, again, going unbeaten, he had the best start for 30 years as an Arsenal manager, I believe, or made Arsenal's best start in 30 years. He was doing well, but that unbeaten run in his first year was really clouded in judgment, and he is a tinkerman. He had a lot of values that didn't set with Arsenal, and he does come across as being a bit bitter. He keeps speaking about Arsenal. I get it, he clearly wants another role, so he needs to stay in the loop and things. It looked like he was going Valencia, then it looked like he's going Italy, but why he keeps harping on about Arsenal is ridiculous, really and truly. He seems, the ones there, forgive me for sounding a bit insensitive in current times, but he just moved on from a gal. You just move on, people, and they just can't take it, and they're just always chatting off your name and things. Not that I know about that, I hear these sort of things. That's how he's moving. He's just moving like a bitter ex, really, people. And moving forward, his actual words have been, he described his first season at Arsenal as very good, and obviously made light of obviously collapsing at the final, at the last defeat, at the last sort of period where we had 3 defeats in 7 days, against Wolves, Leicester and Crystal Palace. Then obviously the draw against Brighton, meaning we didn't get Champions League domestically. Obviously Chelsea, they had longer to, listen, I did think Chelsea, they're always going to win that final. They're a better team than us. They have Eden Hazard. I felt, obviously, you've got to be able to deal with pressure and these sort of things as a team. But, Chelsea booked, forgive me if I'm wrong, Chelsea booked Champions League domestically anyways. So there weren't too much riding on this game beyond the fact that it's silverware. There was less question marks over the manager and the team at the time. So they were allowed to play with freedom, where obviously this was last chance saloon. We were in the gulag sort of thing at the time, and we bottled it collectively as a manager, and we bottled it as players. We've got to take responsibility in that regards. Emery himself said, first and foremost, the first season we did a lot well. I thought, this is my team. Unai, we can see your personality in this side. There was spirit games with intensity, energy. Tottenham, Manchester United, Chelsea, and we reached Arsenal's first European final in 13 years, playing well against Napoli and Valencia. Finishing third was in reach, but we lost 4 decisive points against Palace and Brighton, and that's down to you as obviously the players again are the ones playing, but that's down to you as the manager. And I do think you cost us that as well. As much as the players bottled it, you cost us it. You started tinkering. I'll never forget the Palace game. Mustafi's done well under Arteta, but Mustafi was a joke that game. Players have to take responsibility. But I remember being at the Emirates and Jenkinson's coming in and then they starting. It was just bewildering. And forgive me if I'm wrong, there was a game against Everton, I'm sure. Again, I can't remember if there was injuries and things, but I'm sure for no reason he played Guendouzi and El Nene together, and it was a disaster, class people. And I'm not blaming any of these individual players. What my point is that, yes, the players take responsibility. We account for these. Players are going to make mistakes, managers are going to get it wrong. But too often they're not. Emery got it wrong. Emery set us up in terrible fashion at times, people. And again, just focusing on them last little points we bottled would kind of mean it was a thing where, we was doing where we was consistent from August until May, and we bottled it in April, May sort of thing, when that's not the case, sort of thing. Yes, at the end of the day, it's not as bad as people make out. To get to a final is an accomplishment in itself, and he did okay on one hand, but on the other hand, if you're harsh, he didn't do all right. Getting to a final, considering the opposition, considering the games played, should have always been something Arsenal have done. From the moment Wenger failed to qualify for that, when we went out to Atletico Madrid, it's the minimum we should be getting to that final. Next season when we're going to be in it, it's the minimum. This year it's the minimum, and everyone bottled that again. So it's you can't really be praising him for much, but there was some intensity, there was some energy, there was some spirit in games. I do think it's a bit different under Arteta, and I didn't really see a structure. But Emery wasn't, he just wasn't the man. He weren't terrible sort of thing. He just wasn't the man for it. So we have some respect. He called them results, for what it's worth, incomprehensible. Struggled to say that word clearly. But apparently he said, at first things went magically. There was a good spirit in the dressing room. Aaron Ramsey's injury, when he was at his best, had a big influence. He conveyed positivity, so much energy, and playing a lot of important games in April without him. We needed 100% intensity from every player. So obviously Ramsey was a big loss, and we missed his energy. We obviously miss him now, but I do think, and again, individuals getting injured can derail a season, important players, but I do think it's a cop-out because, I'd say arguably when you took over, is when Ramsey more or less became, you could kind of work out games Ramsey was going to play. He was kind of a shoo-in for the big game sort of thing, and maybe, no disrespect, but he might not necessarily play at Brighton at home in games like that. He'd probably be around for the top 6, so I'd say that kind of means you're relying less on him, whether that was, you'll get onto it and he covered it, contract sort of stuff, but I do think that's a slight cop-out, but I do agree with some of what he's saying. He did say mistakes were made, and as a coach, I take responsibility for mine, which is true. He said, in Baku, obviously I've just copied and pasted what I feel is relevant. In Baku, Chelsea were better. I accept that. In the second half, Eden Hazard made the difference. Preparations were good and everybody was committed. But some players had a mentality that says one day yes, one day no. When in football it has to be yes, yes every day. Now obviously people will see that, and I don't want to say his name, but people will look at Mesut Ozil, people will look at a lot of players, and I agree with him. Players have to be on it, and I think that's what Arteta's really put a shoe in, a positive sort of thing at Arsenal, in that he's making people realise, you're lucky to be here, you need to apply it, you can't just turn it on sometimes. A lot of what Arsenal fans and pundits and people praise you for, in hard intensity, game management, tactically aware, all of these things, rightly so. On one hand, you should be praised, but we're praising you sporadically. These are the bare minimums. These are of any elite sports side, any elite sportsman. There's things you praise them for, but it's the minimum. Mayweather, mastery of his class, wanted to be the expert defense. You say I'm not a boxing expert, but his style was quite defensive. He made sure he was the fittest. He made sure he's the best. He made sure nobody worked harder than him. He made sure he was consistent. He made sure these sort of things. He consistently looked to evolve as a boxer and as a person, sort of thing. These are the bare minimums. Yes, we praise him because he's gone off to do magical things, and we praise the invincible teams and stuff for that. But this is the bare minimum, and it doesn't matter if you're fighting relegation, trying to win leagues or whatever. You need this. So I agree with what Emery is saying wholeheartedly, but then from the manager's point of view, you've got to flip it. Again, I'm not excusing any players for turning it on one day and off, because Emery shouldn't tell you the implications of if you win these sort of games or whatever. You are sportsmen, you are prideful. So anyone turning it on and off, they need to be weeded out. But Emery, that I have to wonder about your sort of motivation. Now Arteta could in some world be here a year from now and the same things are said, because there are similar themes. When Emery did, I do think they're different, and I've got more faith in Arteta. But you heard players say, "Oh, Emery's thing is this, it's that, it's great." By the end of it, you heard he was kind of being slated, sort of thing. Arteta could be guilty of that, full victim of that. But one thing I don't think he lacks is motivating players, and you have to wonder as a manager, whatever you're saying is not getting through to players. Man management is important. If they're not, again, I don't necessarily feel he means the final specifically, but if they're not motivated, you have to place that at the feet of a manager. Are you unable to inspire them and make you see the image of the team that you want? Are you unable to inspire them, if they don't want to do it for the team and the fans, to do it from a selfish point of view? Are you unable to get your tactics and philosophy, get them to buy into it? These are things that I'm sure most honest Arsenal fans feel, sort of thing, people. He also went on to say, we lack that little bit extra to get through a lot of games in those final weeks. If your application and commitment falls below 100%, you can lose, and that's what happened. People were happy, but something was missing. He says a shortfall in commitment, character and leadership. He went on to say there was a shortfall in commitment, character and leadership, and he wanted to address that. And you know what? He's 100% in that, because at the end of the day, like I said, Emery bottled that. But looking at the players for a second now, they bottled it. Do you think I need Emery, need the hierarchy, need to look on Sky Sports and these things to know if we win these games, we'll get decent results? We're playing Champions League football. We're doing this, we're doing that. You don't need them. You shouldn't have them. They shouldn't have to motivate you. Do you? Like I said, I always use Liverpool, and to a degree, not so much this season, but Pep Guardiola. Yes, Pep and Klopp inspire and they motivate and they have to give team talks. But do you think you have to tell these? Do you think prior to the season being done, do you think you have to tell these Liverpool man the implications of winning, losing, and drawing and what's at stake? No. Klopp is just a reassuring voice. Where for Arsenal, it feels like a teacher trying to get through to bad mind kids. Behave yourself, things can happen for you, and your life can turn around, sort of thing. Yes, we did lack it. We did. We know Arsenal. Sadly, we've been mentally fragile. We've been unable to deal with the hardship of games. Arteta's addressing that, because players previously, and again, it's still early days, but players make mistakes. Yeah, we hope we deal with it after. You see players make mistakes and start feeling sorry for themselves. You see a lack of courage on the ball. People are passing it sideways, not because they're lacking abilities, because they're afraid to try things, afraid to have courage in the shirt, rightly or wrongly. People, especially and not to say just the attackers, but our outlook on defending. Again, it's very early to say Arteta's changed this, but it seemed players were just happy to do the bare minimum of what they've been instructed and then pass the buck. There has been, I think players have stood, we've had great technical footballers, people, but players haven't had that mentality. People haven't stood up to be counted for themselves. Before you talk about the club, themselves, and that has been lacking. And that's one thing I agree wholeheartedly with Emery. There was a lack of commitment, character and leadership. And, again, Arteta's only been here for a sec. I want to take it easy with the praise. But again, I look at the Chelsea and United games. We threw the game away against Chelsea, of course. But I saw reaction against, what was it? I swear that was the game Mustafi made a mistake. And one of them, I can't remember what game it was, but there was a game Mustafi made a mistake. You normally see Mustafi, you saw a man, he makes one, he makes 10 mistakes. He forgave himself for that and went again, sort of thing. It's these sort of courage we need. And, that has been lacking at Arsenal. And if any of our Arsenal player reads these comments under Unai Emery, some of it should hit home. I'm not gonna lie with you people. He said, I told the people running the club sorry people, I'm even like I can't read today, I'm quite tired. I told the people running the club, and then there was decisions that didn't go well. Mistakes were made, and as a coach, I take responsibility for mine. For example, all 4 captains left. Ramsey had decided he was going. It would have been better for the team if he continued. And for me, Peter Cech was retiring, fine, but I wanted Koscielny to stay, Nacho Monreal to stay. All those leaders went, which makes the dressing room something else. And of course, but to a degree, again, I get one hand, you want the experienced players to stay, you feel you can get through to them a bit more. But again, you're the new manager. Again, it's not as easy as it, but they're old players. Again, it doesn't matter who signed them, but them 4 players were players signed before you. You could have used this as a time to reinvent and get some other leaders. You should be like what I see with Arteta doing. Of course, there's a captain, but I'm seeing people stand up to be counted and have accountability for themselves. I'm seeing in a positive way, people are now scared to let down their teammates. The fullbacks are scared to not cover their centre halves. The centre halves are scared to not be switched on and follow the strikers. The fullbacks are scared not to tuck in. The midfield are scared not to track back, not to press, and all of these things. The strikers are scared as well, and you get the point, people. This is what I'm now seeing. And again, I get why you wanted them, but then none of them were your players of such, so you should have been able to move. And again, we know where Arsenal is as a team. We need young players. We need to use young players because of where we are financially and just as a climate. You've got to move these players on at some point. And if we look at Koscielny, we hear he was unhappy with the amount he was played. I'm not playing devil's advocate, and Wenger had a lot wrong, but would he have probably stayed if Wenger was here? He might have given it an extra year. So you have to look at the way Koscielny allegedly thought, how his body was being put on the line. Man management, again, is that something for you to look at? Ramsey's out of your hands, because Ramsey should have been sold if it became clear he wasn't moving. Peter Cech, he's retiring, alright, fine. Monreal, again, the same logic applies. You can't rely on these players. You should have known Monreal all season must have had one eye open to probably leaving and returning to Spain. I can't begrudge him for that. And it's not easy, but this was a chance to write anew. Like you're seeing with Arteta, he's still relying on experienced players. He's breathing new life into Mustafi, at least right now. He's using Luiz and Socrates at a time, and all of these other players, but he's also making people like Saka, for different reasons, stand up to be counted. Do you get it? He's promoting people to stand up and be counted and play with fear, and that can be said for young or experienced players, and I feel Emery really failed to do that. It's no secret he wanted Zaha. Maybe if he signed Zaha, things could have been different. Zaha is Premier League proven. I do think a bit of what he's saying is a cop-out with the comments I'm about to say with Pepe. But we have to be honest, if Zaha hit the ground running, he's getting all these goals, results are different. Maybe there would have been less pressure and things like that. But he said, we signed Nicolas Pepe, he's a good player, but we didn't know his character and he needs time. And first and foremost, these signings are not done off the cuff. We must have been in negotiations for months. Emery, if you haven't found out about the guy's character, then what does that say about you? Again, if you were signed a day before he signed for Arsenal, then cool. But typically, people, if I sign a man in August, what do these players come out and say? Oh, I was in talks from December. So Emery, and again, forgive me if I'm wrong, and you went, and I don't want to spoil it, but he said he spoke to Zaha. Did you not speak to Pepe? Did you not have constant dialogue and kind of gauge his personality? Did you not scrutinise or liaise with Mislintat at the time or whoever it was to really stress test his character, how he plays in away games, how he handles failure? Really look at his previous games, because if we're honest, he's had last season was a superb season. The season before that, I believe, was a sort of purple patch. He's only had 2 real standout seasons. So did you really educate yourself on the player beyond what the scouts are sending you? Did you really comprehend the player you was getting? Because I feel with Ceballos, with Pepe and these players, I don't think he really deployed them or deployed any of these players with the necessary freedom or in the best way. So again, did you really know the players you was getting? Did you know how these pieces would fit into your jigsaw? Only he could answer that. Hindsight's a wonderful thing. Of course, it's easy for me as a fan that's never been in his shoes to sit here and say a lot of this. But it's facts, people. He said he didn't know his character, and he said he needs time, patience, which is true. He said, I favoured someone who knew the league and wouldn't need time to adapt. Wilfred Zaha won games on his own, and I mean, he saw us first and tear us up. Tottenham, Manchester United, us, incredible performances, I told them. And one thing, I'll give Emery a bit of credit. You hear he wanted Partey, he got Torreira. You heard he wanted Zaha, he obviously got Pepe, and a couple of others. Again, if you're not giving a man what he wants, then it is discounted. But again, you know Arsenal's financial positions. You know, more importantly than anything, you need to be able to coach players. So again, you got Zaha. I mean, you didn't get Zaha, you got Pepe. You should have been able to get him playing better. Do you get it? You didn't get Torreira. I mean, you didn't get Partey, you got Torreira. You got Torreira, you used him, maybe consistent with Lombard to a degree, and Arteta. There's concerns about how he plays away from just tackles and stuff. What else he offers? You tried to make him into a 10, which didn't bang for us. So again, are you knowing the tools you're getting? I will give him credit. He gave young players debuts and things like that, and he did get some players that needed to go off the books. But he said, he said, this is the player I know and want. I met Zaha and he wanted to come. As you could see, he did all he could. The club decided Pepe was the one for the future. I said, but we need to win now, and this lad wins games. He beats us on his own. He beat us on his own. And that's true. We needed immediate results. If we got into the Champions League, we could have done other things, people. Of course, Emery needs results. It's good for us if Pepe's a good player yesterday. But, maybe if Pepe was started the ground running quicker, hit the ground running quicker, it might have not cost Emery his job. I'm not saying Pepe is the sole reason for him losing his job. Most of you are not stupid enough to even consider that. But it's true, we do need immediate. But clearly, Pepe's got a bit younger on Zaha. I personally feel it boiled down to the fact of Leo, his club that we bought, that he was formerly at. They probably said, you know what, you give us 70 odd million, but you can structure it really how you want. We're a club that sells young players. At a time, they had the youngest squad in the top 5 leagues, so they know their model. In fact, to this day, they're still selling players. Versus Palace, who Zaha is their, one of the best players in their history, their key player. They really gain nothing from losing him. If they sell him, can they get a player that's going to hit the ground running like his? And plus, they probably, because of the Premier League riches, they probably wanted more money up front. 70 million would probably be more closer to 70 million up front with Palace than it would be with Leo. Very few transfers are paid up front, but it might be, Leo might say you can pay over 10 years, or let's just exaggerate, you can pay over 10 years. Palace might say we want our Pizzo for 5 years. Do you get it? Sort of thing. Whereas, I was being humorous with that example, but if it did happen, what would Arsenal's financial outlook be in 5 years? In an ideal world, we're back in the Champions League. The last 3 years we've been around it. If you asked somebody 5 years ago where you saw Arsenal in 5 years, they might say returning to Europe's elite. 3 of them years are done. Are we going to do that in the next 2 years? Can the squad be fixed in the next 2 years? Potentially, if you was a betting man, would you put your savings on Arsenal to do that? I can't speak for you lot, but I wouldn't necessarily myself. Emery is true with a lot of that. He also said, it's also true he's expensive and Palace didn't want to sell. There is a series of decisions that had repercussions. he went on to speak about Ramsey. He said, initially he wanted to stay. He needed to negotiate a new contract, and they didn't reach an agreement. The club had doubts about renewing for a certain sum, and you did hear the reported fees. And, you know, imagine we gave Ramsey a new deal. We've got Ozil stuff. We've got the Aubameyang and these other contracts. And no one could have saw it, but the whole COVID stuff, we could be putting even more issues. And this is why you don't let people run down their deals. You make a decision and you sell someone for 40 million minimum, which Ramsey could have been worth to the club. So yeah, the problem is not the fact that Ramsey didn't sign a new deal. It's that we don't make decisions quickly. Like, we're still going to, we're going into a summer with Aubameyang now. Again, the people can't come out and say us, but make a definite decision. Are you going to sell Aubameyang or are you going to keep him? If you're going to keep him and let him run down his deal, are we going to sign a striker this year, or are we going to further scout strikers for the next year and then turn our targets into other things? I don't think our foresight planning has been the best. I do think there has been a degree of winging it, sadly. As much as I love my club, I've got to be honest with you lot. But I did think they were right, really, to have concerns about renewing his deal for a certain price. He said, I can't get in. He said, apologies, people, I'm getting ahead of myself. I need my glasses. Ramsey wanted to feel valued. It was a financial matter. I can't get involved, and I still didn't know him well when I arrived. He's important, but I can't say what they should pay him. I believed Xhaka could be captain, and the players voted for him. He was respected in the dressing room. But why vote? Why did I vote? Why not own that decision myself? My strategy was 50% them, 50% me. And that's the smart thing. Obviously, he recognises to some degree man management is important. It's one of the most important things into football. You've got to make players feel valued for a variety of reasons. You've got to make them feel you've got your best interests at heart. They've obviously got to love your tactics. And if you feel that as much as you can as a manager, you're including them, and it's a collaborate sort of thing rather than an authoritative sort of decision, they're going to have more time for you, and I see why. But I do think if Emery had his time again, I do think he lacked conviction in a lot of ideas. I do think he was hard done by in many incidences, but I don't think he was decisive enough. I think he was half a dozen of one and all of these half a dozen, six of the other sort of thing. He just kept doing it. I think if he... I did, as a fan, you got the voice of he kept second guessing himself and potentially listening to too many external forces and stuff. I'm sure, and I would love to ask him, I'll never get to you, but if you had your way again, what would you do? And I think one of the things he would say was potentially be more decisive, be more authoritative in my decisions, or what I want to say within the context. Anyways, I like to have players input their opinion. There were players with character to be captain, but you need time and backing. Without the support of certain people, fans, it's harder. If Xhaka had Koscielny and Nacho Monreal or Ramsey, he could have eased into it. Emotionally, certain results and attitudes inside didn't help the team have the commitment and the togetherness of before. And that's true. Togetherness, that's one thing him and Arteta have in common. That was central to us. We needed togetherness as a club, people. We really needed togetherness. So yeah, people, moving forward, I don't know why I've copied and pasted that twice, but he spoke on Mesut Ozil. Now, they had a turbulent relationship, to put it nicely, people, without getting into it again and without saying who's this and that. I mean, Ozil has to hold his hands up, Unai has to hold his hands up. He said, I was always open to talking with him. He was always in my plans, but he had to do his bit. I spoke a lot with Mesut. He says, there is a long pause, maybe a hint of sadness. I copy and paste that for no reason. He said he has to be self-critical too, analyse his attitude and commitment. I tried with all my might to help Ozil. Throughout my career, talented players have reached their best level with me. Anyways, I was always positive, wanting him to play, to be involved. In pre-season, I told him I wanted to help him recover the best Ozil. So why did you bully him, really? I wanted a high level of participation and commitment in the dressing room. I respected him and thought he could help. He could have been a captain, but the dressing room didn't want him to be. That's not what I decided. That's what the players decided. Captains are the ones who have to keep defending the club, the coaches and the coach and teammates. And clearly, you know, they know Ozil's a great player. He is respected in the dressing room, as you could see with what we heard coming out when he was alienated. But, you know, he's not the captain material. He'll probably, you know, a bit of that how can I put it? Go looking back at Sunday League, for me, you had the captains, the lads, all right, mate, everyone, yeah, let's get in, shut up, I'm talking sort of thing. It's, we need to get back in the game sort of thing. You had them sort of man there. You had other people who were captains in all but wearing the armband. Then you had the Mesut Ozils, who I think he's a bit, you got the Mesuts, you got the Hazards. I think they will stand up and be kind. They're not scared though, but they're more moaning sort of thing. They're more like, why are you passing, man? It's more like that sort of thing. And Ozil isn't captain material. He can lead the thing. He has leaded the thing. He can be around leaders, but he's not someone when you're in the trenches you're looking to make the difference. He's someone you're looking to. Ironically, something that's always, you know, a word you'll always mention with Mesut Ozil is assist that really. I get it. He wanted to help him. He wanted to help him rediscover Mesut Ozil, of course. But I do think to a degree Emery didn't help himself, to put that nicely. Moving forward, he said the difference between Ozil's performances home and this is not it. Again, apologies, people. I should really look out for the quotations. Let me zoom in. He said. He was asked about the performances away from home, basically. He said sometimes they were better, sometimes worse. Like all players, sometimes he wasn't available because he was ill or his knee hurt. Watford was his first after the robbery and I put him straight in. I was always open to talking. He was always in my plans, but he had to do his bit. And there were things I couldn't control. So clearly Ozil had to take some responsibility, of course. And I do think it's not just Ozil. I do think there's several players you look at and I wouldn't say they turned on Emery. They just simply stopped believing he is the man, in my opinion. He slowly lost a lot of them, man, with a lot of things. He lost Koscielny with how he's managing him. He's lost Mesut Ozil. You heard him and Xhaka had busts up and all of these sort of things. You heard the young players and I'm not forgiving them. You know, there's got to be a reason for this, people. Moving forward, he said a coach has to have the strength to take responsibility to be in the firing line. I protect the players and the club protects the manager. I'm a club man. That's what they signed. With Arsene Wenger, it was different. He did everything. Now there's Raul and Edu, and I have to trust them to do their job. My job is the football. The club have people who handle other stuff, although that impacts on the pitch. Some of that hurt us. And moving forward, and one thing that I do think was a bit distasteful from the English media and started off as humorous was his grasp on the English language. I mean, you can't really mock a man that, because his English, you know, he might get some words wrong and stuff, but let's be honest, you can have a conversation with Emery. And this goes for everyone away from Emery. I've always hated when people mock someone if their English isn't on point. You can't mock a man because his English, you know, he's saying words that might be out of frame. If he can, you know, he might speak 3 languages and trying to do a thing with English, so you can't get onto a man for that. And I think it was quite distasteful from the media to mock his English, because one thing I give him credit for, you know, he didn't shy away from that. He tried, obviously we make fun, he said he was watching Peaky Blinders to learn, but he tried. Sometimes it was off, but I respect that, because he could have cowered, you know, got a translator, stayed quiet, but he tried to endear himself to the fan, not the fans, ain't really fans, to the press and stuff. And it was kind of disgusting how he was kind of treated in that regards. And maybe ironically, if he used a translator, it might have, in hindsight, I'm just thinking now, folks, it might have been better, because, you know, if you're using a translator, nothing you're saying can be wish-washy and stuff. Like I can't speak Spanish, but I can say a couple things. If I was to try to speak, I might say things that could be interpreted a different way. For instance, for me, I think in hindsight, I misinterpreted as much as I can be the chameleon team he's talking about. I think when he was speaking about chameleon team, he's speaking about adapting to different climates. For me, seeing that, and I still think this, it's cowardly, because a chameleon is something insect or animal, whatever they call it, is that hides and adapts to his habitat and blends in to avoid people. And I mean, from a team, as an honest fan who wants to see my team get back in the Champions League and all of these things, and we speak of courage, of winning through harmony and things, a chameleon isn't the best thing. Like, you could have said lion, you could have said, you know, something beastie like that. I get his angle, but again, he was done dirty with the language thing. But I credit him for trying. But he said, at a decent level, although I needed to improve, when results are bad, it's not the same. You lack the linguistic depth to explain and take good evening, okay, it's good evening. But when I said good evening and won, it was fun. When we were losing, it was a disgrace. And of course, I get a bit of it is light-hearted banner, but I did just think it was distasteful. He also said it's difficult. The energy slips. Things drift, everything does, everyone does. Some support you but feel the atmosphere, relations, and that transmits to the pitch. Losing leads against Palace and Wolves reflected our emotional state. We weren't right, it wasn't working. I told the players I don't see the team I want. That commitment and unity weren't there anymore. That's when I see on my own the club left me alone and there was no solution. And I would say if he felt alone, then, you know, Arsenal, I don't think we left him alone, and I'm always going to say that as a fan, because that's one thing. We do things together, we win through harmony. If he did feel alone, then, you know, Raul, Edu, potentially the players as well for their next manager, and just everyone could see okay, cool, can we show a bit more support because everybody's human? As much as I want Arteta to rally behind the players, there's going to be times you need the players to rally behind him. You look at the great Pep Guardiola, there was a time he stopped believing in himself, and it's in his book. Apologies for that, people. Iniesta came into his room, into the office or whatever, and said, "Yo, manager, we believe in you." That keeps you going. That keeps you going, sort of thing, and whatnot. But to a degree, being a manager, as he knows more than I'll ever be able to comprehend, folks, it's a lonely world. It's a lonely job. Everybody loves you when you're winning. Everybody's onto you when you're losing or indifferent. You've got to find that solution. Yeah, you should have coaching staff and people around you, but you're alone. You're the one that's going to stay up all night when your wife's telling you to go to bed watching clips. You're the one who's in the shower, using the toilet, doing number 2 and that, thinking about how to change these things. So it is, to a degree, being a manager is always going to be lonely. It's a lonely iceberg. Even when you win stuff and you hit the top, Wenger, Pep, Ferguson, there's probably been Klopp now, there's probably been a time where at some period when they're lifting up their trophies, they realise, yo, shit, I got to do this again. Like, how do I do this again? And it becomes a lonely thing. It is a lonely world. It is almost, football's a collaborative effort, of course, and it's not really the same. But if you look at it, I do think managers, to a degree, they're more like, obviously not more like boxers or tennis players or whatever, but they're individuals, more or less. The team is a reflection of theirs, and it's a collaborative sport, of course, but they're the individuals, because good or bad, it falls at them. You know, when everything's well, it's all the team. When everything's bad, the manager, is he losing the team and things like that. And that's why it's important to have great man management skills and ultimately have a system that the players believe in. I'm not too sure that was the case. He went on to say, at every club I've been protected. At PSG, the chairman protected me in the dressing room and publicly. At Arsenal, they were unable to. Maybe because they came from Wenger, who did everything. They'd say, we're with you, but in front of the fans in the dressing room, they couldn't protect me. Truth is, I felt alone and the results dictated I had to go. But look, I was happy at Arsenal and I remember the good things. Before I carry on, yeah, we probably could have done more to protect him, but again, it's a difficult game because it was a delicate situation. If the people above Emery came and, and I do think they backed him in front of the players either way, but, it's a difficult game. They've got to manage both parties, and, if the players don't believe in the manager and they start thinking the chairman believes in the manager, you start thinking, well, really, well gone for this club. He also said, the first year was magnificent. I gave opportunities to young players. Bukayo Saka played 8 minutes and never touched the ball, but that was a great step for a 17-year-old who's going to be great. And you can see from day dot, that's one thing he loved, Bukayo Saka. It's well documented, the training sessions. He said Bird Leno had grown. Joe Willett, Reece Nelson, Eddie, Gabriel Martinelli, Matteo Guendouzi did very well. Lucas Torreira, fair enough, that's true. It's rewarding seeing them grow. And Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang got 31 goals and was top goal scorer. Lacazette scored 19 and gave 13 assists. And to be fair, you can't disagree with that particular paragraph. He did give opportunities. Aubameyang did score, and ultimately he's part of your team. So you've got to give credit, people, where due. He went on to say, he said, sorry, people. Yeah, apologies. He said all that was missing was Aubameyang scoring that penalty against Tottenham. 2 extra points for Champions League qualification or beating Brighton and Palace. We couldn't finish the job. In fact, I don't even know if he said the Aubameyang point, people, but I'm pretty sure he did. We couldn't finish the job and there were mistakes. I'm self-critical. At certain moments, I couldn't get results. I enjoyed the Emirates. I still follow Arsenal. They're making changes. Mikel was the right choice. I spoke to him around December. I want the best for him and Arsenal, and that's nice to see he spoke to them. It's nice to see he still watches us. Of course, a bit of that is a PR job, and if he is watching us, it's probably with a degree of pride. He's thinking, is Arteta really better than me? I could have done this, I could have done that. He also said, the desire and energy is there. I'm watching football, learning, and if there's a good project in England, if someone wants me and is prepared to get behind me, I'm available. In England, that identification with your team brings the game alive. It's deeper there, like a church. I was born in San Sebastian and my team is Real Sociedad. That feeling is in my heart. And that's what you find in England. It's marvellous, the loveliest thing there is. And yeah, man, all I could do is say, you know what, Emery, you've got to move forward. We've heard a lot of this before, and I'm sure, you know, it's just let the chapter end, you know. Go off and continue your coaching career wherever that is. I wish you all the best. I'm sure most fans wish you all the best. You do scream a bit bitter, but, you know, you're entitled to speak about your time at Arsenal as much as you want until you're content. On that note, though, I'm going to keep it moving. It's always a pleasure speaking with you guys, but yeah, man, I'm tired now. Yeah, please make sure you comment, subscribe, do the rest. I'm out.